Next up is Joey Wender. He's the Capital Projects Fund Director at the U.S. Treasury Department. That fund is a $10 billion program that really was intended to be the seed funding for BEAD. And almost all of that funding has now been allocated, right? So he's going to give us an update. I know many of you may know Joey. He's a long friend of INCOMPAS, prior staffer for Senator Markey, and has been working on tech and telecom issues now for a decade and a half or so. And we're just thrilled that he can join us. And I understand he's willing to take questions from the audience too. So I'm going to hand the mic over to somebody else who will make sure that that happens at the end of your remarks. Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Chip. Thanks for INCOMPAS for putting together really an incredible lineup here. And it's really an honor to follow Commissioner Starks, who just spoke here a second ago. I do want to start by acknowledging that this is an historic time in broadband deployment in the United States. And we are in DC, and politicians always like to talk about everything's historic, and it's an historic time. It's an historic moment. But it really is. I mean, it really is. Never before, and I'm pretty sure never again, will the federal government spend tens of billions of dollars in a coordinated effort over such a short period of time to bring affordable, reliable, high-speed internet to all Americans. And I think it's something that, I know it's something that I keep in mind at all times. It's important for everyone to keep in mind as we're embarking on this journey together. Now, the question people often ask me is, how in the world do you work at the Treasury Department, and why does Treasury have $10 billion to promote broadband connectivity? The reason why, the origin story behind the Capital Projects Fund is sadly, it's the pandemic, right? Everybody in this room knew that broadband, that high-speed internet access is essential for everyday life, for work, for education, for healthcare, for communicating with friends and family. But it's the pandemic that sadly put that into such sharp focus. And so in the American Rescue Plan, which is one of the COVID relief bills, Congress made a down payment on bringing connectivity to all. Exactly what Angie was just describing a minute ago. We are the seed money. We're the precursor to the larger show, which is admittedly BEAD, which is the money that will come after us. And I'm excited and proud to report that of our $10 billion to date, we have now approved plans in all 50 states to the tune of $9.5 billion. So now what does that mean? That means we have green-lighted states to proceed, to put out these projects for bid competitively, which I'll get to in a second. I am at INCOMPAS, so we have to talk about competition, to make these awards and for construction to start. And I am happy to say that work is underway already in about half of the states. And in a handful of states, homes are already connected. Projects have been completed. And what are they being completed with? 100 symmetrical speeds. 100 symmetrical. We're the only program that requires that speed threshold. And the reason why, because we want to make investments that don't just last for years, we want to make investments that last for decades to come. And when all's said and done, we will have connected over 2 million households just with our dollars from the Capital Projects Fund. I think that's going to be an incredible record and an incredible legacy for the work that is being done as part of the American Rescue Plan. Now, I want to come back to competition. I think it's important to acknowledge that why are we here in the first place? Why is there a digital divide? Or why is there tens of millions of households that don't have high-speed internet? The simplest answer is it's a market failure, right? The market did not incentivize providers to go to serve these homes. And that's where we come in, right? We're paying for the CapEx or a piece of the CapEx, and we are requiring states to run competitive processes. right? Put them out to bid. And not just a competitive process, but to have an all of the above approach when it comes to providers. Shouldn't just be incumbents. It should be incumbents, competitors, telcos, cable companies, electric co-ops, munis. We need creative solutions to do this build outs. And that's why that is one of our requirements that we put on states. It's not just about competitively bidding. It's about making sure that the whole suite of providers is able and has an opportunity to bid, because we know that will lead to better outcomes, lower cost, better service, and more locations served. I also want to touch on something that Commissioner Starks talked about a few minutes ago, and he's exactly right. The conversation about the digital divide is not just about access, it's about adoption. And there are multiple barriers to adoption. And we at the Capital Projects Fund are giving flexibility to states to address those adoption issues as well. One example is we're allowing states to use our money for digital equity. And so I had the pleasure of being in Philadelphia on Friday with Mayor Parker of Philadelphia to announce a $20 million grant to Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, which will allow over 12,000 individuals to have a computer, to have a tablet, right? It's not just about bringing access to somebody's home. If you don't have a device, you can't access the internet. The other piece of this is, if you can't afford the service, you're not adopting it and you're not going to be connected. And that's why from day one, we have been proud to require that every single provider that takes $1 of our money to participate in the ACP. Now, a lot has been said about the ACP, and I want to emphasize 2 points. The first is, I said on this stage last year that there would be a cascading effect if the ACP ran out of money, both for the tens of millions of households that rely on the subsidy every month, but also on providers that need a sustainable business model as they're deploying these dollars. So I want to reiterate what I said last year, is that from our perspective at Treasury, we are 100% supportive of additional funding for the ACP. We cannot allow the program to go away. So what am I focused on now that we've awarded most of the money? I don't just sit around all day with my feet up. We are very much in the compliance and implementation phase, because there's a key deadline that is driving the work. And that is that all the money has to be spent by the end of 2026, meaning every project's got to be done. Every project's got to be done. And by having such a rigorous or such an ambitious deadline, I know we are pushing states to act as fast as possible. So I'll close before I open up to questions, and also acknowledging that I'm the only thing sitting between all of you and lunch. I'm fully aware of that. There's 2 key lessons that I want to share with you. The first is, I understand that in order to do this deployment, right, to bring broadband to all Americans, it really takes a village. I like to think of it as a trifecta, right? You've got the federal dollars that's coming from us. You've got the state implementation. The states are the ones that are driving where this money is going, how these programs are structured, and they're running the process. And then you need providers and everyone else along the supply chain to actually do the work, and supply the fiber and supply the widgets and technology needed to build out these networks. It takes all 3. Without, if you take away one of the legs, the whole thing collapses. And that's another reason why I'm just so excited to be here with such a diverse group of stakeholders. It's because everybody is part of this larger goal. Everybody has a stake in making sure that this is a success.